Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm gonna add you as a co-host,
Okay.
maybe. Come on. Here we go.
Hello. You think Pac-Man gets tired of eating these same little dots? Hello.
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 I can get anything toppings on my life for just $10. Pepperoni, sausage, bacon, run, little man, run, go! $10 taste man.
How are you doing, Cortez? We're just trying to get everybody connected and we'll get started in a few minutes.
How have you all been?
Pretty good.
You got your shots?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Second
So
one
have
on
I.
Saturday.
Good. People wearing masks up in Washington County?
Some.
Yeah, same here. Same here in Tulsa. Yeah. You have any people who don't want to take the shot?
Yeah, I think we do everywhere in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
which has at least made it easier for the rest of us to get them, but overall, it's not a good thing.
You're right.
Thanks for everybody joining us tonight.
These are just the Republicans.
I hope you guys don't mind me crashing in on your.
Not at all, Naomi. We're glad to have you join us.
Yeah, I really need to get a better understanding of when the virtual meetings are happening for each county, because it's been a lot harder trying to make meetings now that we're all online.
Yeah.
Should be easier, but I just mean like
Right.
it's not like, oh, we're meeting here every day at this time. So.
Right. Well, we have always done the last Thursday of the month, and we're trying to keep that up now. So
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me join in.
yeah. I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes to log on, and Forrest Bennett is going to be joining us tonight, and he only has about 30 minutes. So when he gets on, we're going to just kind of hand it over to him and let him have the time. And then we'll wrap up with letting everyone have our announcements and stuff for the county. And we are recording this tonight, just so everybody knows that they're being recorded, so that people who miss it can view it later. Well, while we're waiting on Forrest to join us, I'll go ahead and let you guys know our treasurer's report for the month. As of today, our balance is $1,853.18. And last month it was $1,363.99. And that the difference there is we received a $500 donation, which was very generous. And we spent $10.81 in fees for like Act Blue and the way we do online donations. So, but that's good for us. We have almost $2,000. So, and I see that Forrest has joined us.
Hi, I just got the,
Thanks.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I literally just got the sound to work, so I apologize. I will be quiet now.
No problem. Thanks for joining us. Guys, this is Forrest Bennett. If you don't know him, he's a state representative from the Oklahoma City area. What's your house district, Forrest? Oh, we muted now.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
No, yeah, there you go. We can hear you.
I represent House District 92, which is Midtown, Downtown, and Southside Oklahoma City. I'm in the downtown part of it now, people have decided that it's okay to have events again. So I'm kind of running around like a head cut off.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you,
Hi.
Forrest, if you want, and kind of let us know what's going on.
Yeah, I just want, I'm kind of scrolling through to see who all's joined, and I see some names I recognize. So good to see some people. I am Forrest Bennett, product of Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and a member of the state legislature now. And I am, this is the second time that I've gotten to speak to the Washington County Democrats. The first time was when I was a candidate. And it's just really nice to see people who agree with what's right from my hometown. So it's really great to be able to talk to you all. The way that I try to do things when I'm invited to speak is that I try to limit what I think you want to hear, and then I let you ask questions, and then hopefully when I talk at length like politicians do, it's at least about something that you want to hear. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me and for reaching out and asking. We are here we're about a third of the way through the legislative session, and it hasn't been great. The priorities that have been made evident by the majority party in the legislature are not the priorities that I think that the people of Oklahoma deserve to have us focus on. But we've heard several abortion bills, several gun bills, and very little about how to bring relief to Oklahomans as a result of COVID. And it's extremely frustrating, specifically because we watched the process of the way our government first ignored that this was happening, and then minimized, and then tried to limit the mitigation, and is now trying our best to move past it, despite the fact that it is far from over. So that's what we're dealing with. And even so, there have been a lot of great bills filed by members of our caucus, and I'll be honest, a couple of members of the other caucus that have not gotten the same priority that these sort of political statement bills have gotten. And so that's incredibly frustrating. But we have heard from Republican members that some of the advocacy work that you all do, that folks out in the real world do, writing your legislators and asking them not to hear certain bills or to vote a certain way on bills, it's working. And they are growing incredibly frustrated at some of the moderate Republicans, growing incredibly frustrated at some of the bills that they're having to vote on. And I cry so many legitimate tears for them at their being forced to put their name on one or the other side of certain issues. But I am actually more optimistic than I have been in a long time, and I want to talk to you about why. I see a few people having a hard time straining to hear. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll try to project like I was taught in musical theater when I was at Bartlesville High School. What we saw over the last calendar year, over the last year, from March of last year to today, is a realization on the part of, I think, a lot of people that government serves a purpose and that our government was ill-equipped to serve the purpose that it needed to in the light of a crisis like this. And what we're trying to do is explain to people that while we're in a unique situation where more people are affected than ever before by a pandemic that's affecting all of us, but the reality is that every day in this state and in Bartlesville and in Oklahoma City and everywhere in between, there are families that are being evicted from their homes because someone lost a job through no fault of their own. There are people who are going broke or losing their homes because of an illness or an accident. And there are people struggling to get by on sub-living wages. And these things were oftentimes sort of put on the back burner because, frankly, a lot of Oklahomans just didn't see it in their day-to-day life. But COVID has been devastating, and it has not spared any demographic. And I will say that it is because of our inability to set up our social safety net in the right way. It has certainly affected certain communities worse than others, but everybody has been affected by it in a way that we haven't seen before. And I really don't mean to make light or minimize or anything, but I do believe that this is an opportunity for us to point to the reality, because I think I'm in my 5th year in the legislature, and I think that my biggest takeaway is that our legislature and our governor, they like to govern based on the state that they want to have and the constituency that they want to have and the realities on the ground that they wish were true. And very few of these things are actually reflective of what's actually going on. And I think that prior to COVID, it was hard to point that out to folks. But COVID happening soon after relatively, the teacher walkout that happened, wherein a lot of people came to the Capitol and saw with their own eyes their legislators who had said one thing do something else. And so I think all of these things have put us in a position where it is imperative that everyone who is in this Zoom call and everyone who's a part of the county party and county parties across the state make sure that we do not forget. COVID was no one's fault in the United States, but our response to it has put us on one or the other side of what it looks like to deliver good government. And I think that Democrats in Oklahoma, elected Democrats in Oklahoma, are trying to make the case that we're not scary. We're not baby killers. We're not any of these things. What we are is a group of people that is interested in providing quality services to the most people in the best way possible. And I think that some people are waking up to that in a way that they haven't before. And I think that places like Bartlesville, which I was at over the weekend, are places where we are uniquely positioned to make that argument and win friends and supporters where we couldn't before. And so I hate to tell you guys this, but this conversation is going to end with an ask from me to you, which is, if you have been shy about being a Democrat, I'm asking you to not be. If you've been shy about talking about what you think the state should do, the county should do, the city should do, don't be. Because across the state for several years, not just recently, the people of Oklahoma have, when there's not an R or a D attached to something on the ballot, for example, state questions like alcohol modernization, marijuana legalization, and Medicaid expansion, the people of Oklahoma choose the right direction. It's simply when we devolve things to Republican or Democrat that they retreat to their corners. But we are on the cusp of something, I think, which is a sea change, generationally, demographically, but it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us. So I'm gonna shut up, and I'm gonna let you guys ask questions and hopefully be able to answer them in a way that is satisfactory to you. But I am I've talked to county parties around the state, and I've got to tell you, I really think that there's something happening in Washington County. I think that there's and I've been telling other people about it. We've got a huge Hollywood film being filmed. That production is starting now. The investment in the community has been incredible, and the amenities that people are able to see now as a result of young, open-minded people, I think are helping people to open their minds, and we can't lose that momentum now. And so I look forward to coming up there and being with you in person to top priority, beat Wendy Stearman, and beyond that, advocate for things that are going to help us. But I sit on the floor of the House. I sit about as far away from Wendy as a person can. She hasn't asked many questions on the floor, but she did ask me one question once, and it was about a bill that I was running that had to do with barbering and cosmetology. And her question was about whether a new statute involving the barber poles, which are red and white or red, white, and blue, if that meant that people couldn't fly the American flag in front of their business. That was her that was the question that she wanted to ask. Of all of the things that she could have asked, this was a bill that's going to help. It's going to lower the barriers for people to get into the cosmetology and barbering business. It's going to do good things for the economy. Her question was, are people going to be able to fly their American flags? And that's just the lowest common denominator kind of political act that hurts. And I see this from a lot of people across the state that I serve with, but it hurts when I see it from somebody from my hometown. When I see it, and I know that means that the O'Connors are not being represented by a person who has their interests in mind, that the Deffenbaugh aren't doing that my own parents aren't having that. My dad, who's a Republican. In fact, Wendy's doing more than any Democrat ever has to get my dad to consider converting to a different party. But we are at a place where I think that the death pangs of the conservative movement are louder than ever because they're closer to extinction than ever before. But it's not going to happen on its own, and it's going to require you and me to communicate and be more gracious than we should be with people who disagree with us, and try to communicate to them that we have the best interests of folks in mind. So I'm happy to be here talking to you because I think of the counties and the cities and the areas of Oklahoma that we have ground to gain. Bartlesville is right there at the top. And we see the numbers, we see the demographics. The difference is the enthusiasm on the ground, and that's what we need from you all. So I want to answer any questions that you all have about my work at the Capitol or what's going on in the Democratic Party or anything like that. But just know this is the beginning of a conversation that you and I are going to have, I hope. And when it's safe to do so, I look forward to coming up and being with you guys in person.
Yeah, Forrest.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, how you doing? Hey, as you know, I'm an independent who is leaning towards a Democrat and have been my whole life, and I really don't want to change that independent status. But one of the things that I really think the Democrats really need to think about is how do you attack our current slate of legislators, both on the local level as well as on the federal level. Because the fact of the matter is that, in my opinion, Hearn, Senator Banana Head, these guys have violated their own oath of office, and nobody is holding them accountable for it. Nobody is pushing it in their face. And the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, somebody should be pushing that right in their face. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and then you made a move to try to undo a legitimate election. And just based on that, you should be completely disbarred from public office. And I really feel very strongly about that, because these guys, they were part of the January 6th deal. They just were. And they were the ones inside that were trying to undo what was rightfully Joe Biden's election. And they were inside hoping to overturn it. So how do we attack them and get them out of the way? All right, go ahead. I'll let you. Go ahead.
Isn't that the $1 million question, Tom? Langford. I'm sure you all watched, but Langford was literally on the microphone about to make his objection to a legitimate election when his own aide had to stop him. And if you watch the video, he says the aide says the protesters have entered the building, and Langford's quietly that okay, and then goes off. And I got to be honest with you, I have interacted with James Langford on numerous occasions, and while I've disagreed with him 100% of the time, he had, up until January, struck me as a person who had a line beyond which he would not cross. That he was a man of real faith, which is a whole other thing, because I consider myself to be a man of faith, but half the people that I work with think that because I'm a Democrat, I can't also be a person of faith, which is frustrating. But I don't know what motivates folks like James Langford, who, quite frankly, does not need to cater to the Trump Republicans in order to get his job again when he's up for re-election. So what is it that motivates them? And I think that you've got to push that. You've got to find opportunities, and I certainly will, to pose that question to these folks in a public way. What motivated you? Because this is a person who, if you really believe in the Constitution that you talk about and the flag that you insist we stand and salute and sing for, if you really believe in all of those things, then what the hell were you doing objecting to an election and ginning up the kind of anger and frustration that you knew was already there, that was boiling, that was directly under the surface? Because let's be honest, there are a bunch of Oklahomans that would have been in Washington, D.C. if they could have afforded it. And but for the fact that they couldn't get out there for the trip, weren't there. And Tom, it's like that happened before we got back to the the Capitol for session, and we were contacted by the Fusion Center, which is a collaboration of law enforcement officers in Oklahoma who monitor and respond to threats against public officials. And I can't say everything, but there were legitimate threats on the lives of Oklahoma Democratic lawmakers, and our addresses are public, and so there were some serious concerns, and it's pretty surreal to walk into that building every day and go to work with people and know that like 1 out of every 4 of them may feel like the president wasn't legitimately elected, and that I, as a Democrat, let me see if I can get this right, I drink the blood of babies or something. I don't know. I think that it's that I drink the blood of babies. I haven't, and I can't tell you if it's good or not, but I would assume that it isn't, and I definitely don't. But that doesn't matter because the truth doesn't matter anymore. But for people like James Linkford, Kevin Hearn, Frank Lucas, my God, and Tom Cole, those guys, they've been around long enough. And I don't know how it was James Inhofe that was the one person who decided not to play along with that, but he was. And I think that says something. That was a man who's been in Washington for a long time and knows that these short-term trends aren't worth sacrificing your career. So I would ask Langford, how is it that you were standing on the wrong side of history when Jim Inhofe was on the right side of it? And I would ask Kevin Hearn, why do you take taxpayer money in the form of your paycheck and swear an oath to the Constitution when you readily violate it? And that happens at the state level too. And actually, I guess my I'm going to try to see if there's not too much glare. Sorry. My thought is that the stuff that is at the federal level is a little bit too far away for a lot of Oklahomans who may not be as involved in politics as interested on a day-to-day basis as we are. But at the state level, why are we wasting taxpayer money and time on bills that we know are unconstitutional? I would ask Wendy why she chooses to vote for bills that she knows are going to be unconstitutional, and I would ask. I don't want to put folks like Judd Strom, who's a reasonable person, in the crosshairs, but at a certain point, if you're not speaking up against what's going on, then you're tacitly a part of it. And that right there, we're at that point. We're at that point where somebody like me, who's a cis white male, who's in a comfortable district with conservative Democrats who believe in economic, liberal policies. This is the moment where we are supposed to be the educators for our districts and for our constituents and say, hey, there's a lot of rhetoric out there, but the truth is this, and the truth is not what's being perpetuated. So that's a long way, Tom, to say, I don't know what we do, but I do know that what we can do to get closer to the solution is be proudly and unapologetically representative of the truth. And you don't have to be a Democrat to do that. In fact, my dad's a Republican, and I tried to get him to convert a few times, but this is a guy who saw Trump get elected, saw what Trump stood for, looked at his party platform that he's been a part of his whole life, said, this is what I believe. And then this is where he forked off in a way that most Republicans didn't. He stayed the course with his party and said, what the hell's happening with this president? Instead of saying, well, I guess this is what I believe now. Because Trump doesn't represent what the Republican Party used to stand for, but I don't know what the hell the Republican Party stands for now, because they've all decided to abandon that in service of one man. So I think that we can't let people forget that insurrection happened, and we can't let people forget just how close that was to us and how many people that are sworn to represent us, protect us, participated in that, and stay angry about it, because you're legitimately allowed to be angry about it. I probably didn't answer that in a satisfactory way, Tom, but it's really good to see you.
No, that's fine. But I do have one final. As tomorrow morning, I'm going to be at my Rotary Club, and Stearman is going to be a speaker. Okay. What question would you think is probably the most important question for someone like her in a public meeting?
Man, if I had one question to ask her, I think that I'm going to be stuck thinking about this for the rest of the night, Tom, even after I leave this conversation. But if you can ask in some way, I mean, we've got to be substantive with our questions. Like, I don't know if you guys watched President Biden's press conference today, but there was a whole lot of speculation beforehand. Well, this Dementia Joe, he's not going to do a great job, and they just really ginned it up. And then the media used the opportunity to ask stupid questions that were just baiting questions that they wanted answers to. I think the trick is to ask substantive questions and force her to be in a position where she can't answer them substantively, because she doesn't. In my experience, she has not devoted herself to the process in a way that honors you as her constituents, and she has not critically considered all of the issues in a way that speaks to any adherence to anything beyond her ideological bent. I would ask, have you had the opportunity to vote for anything that would help your constituents in Oklahoma, in Bartlesville, that have been so negatively impacted by COVID? And when you had that opportunity, what did you do? Because I've seen her votes and they're not great, and they don't represent Bartlesville, and they don't do anything to help you all. And so if you can put her on the spot and ask her that, and I may actually, after this, Tom, I may try to look up some specific bills, but I would ask her also, what bills did you file? You got elected at a time when so many Oklahomans, so many Washington County residents are struggling and have seen challenges that they've never seen before. What did you file to answer those challenges? What solutions did you present? And how hard did you fight for them? And the answer is none. She didn't, and she doesn't know. And she won't say that, but we'll know that. And then she'll be on the record lying. And I hate to be that way about it, but I mean, I get angry because I walk into that Capitol sometimes and I don't feel safe. And it's because of rhetoric from people like her. So how are we supposed to, honor the decorum of the building when people are using fancy words and parliamentary procedure to screw Oklahomans over? And that's what frustrates me. This has been really therapeutic for me, actually. Thank you, guys.
That was a really good question and a really good answer. Thank you, Forrest.
Tom always brings it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you told me you only had till about 7:30, so we don't want to keep you any longer than you have.
If there's one or two more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay.
I know that I don't get this opportunity too much, and I'm scrolling through to see how many people are still around. But yeah, I'm happy to answer a couple more questions if they've got them. I think, yeah, I'm not at total risk of being left behind. Eric, you look like a real curious guy.
Yeah. I think Tom actually covered my question. I wrote down one, just about how to, I think during the legislative session, we have a lot of recourse. We can call a lot of different people. We can write a lot of letters. We can email. There's just a lot going on. I think some of us just don't know what to do in, the rest of the year when it's all wrapped up. So, attending the Rotary meeting and asking Wendy is a great idea. What do we do next? What can we do when the legislature is not in session? What can we reasonably expect of our representatives, to do for us during the time when they're not actually at the Capitol?
So I think a couple things. The first is we've got to register voters. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who everybody thinks, I guess every Democrat is just like her now, but but the way that she won her election against a pretty entrenched Republican was that she expanded the electorate that she was working to represent. She found new voters. What blows my mind is the conversation around voter fraud and all of that, and so many politicians jumping to limit how and where and when you can vote, when the reality is we had record turnout, and it didn't come close to being 100% of registered voters. Certainly didn't come close to being 100% of eligible voters. So we know that there are folks out there that, for one reason or another, do not feel the need to show up, and there are two reasons for that. One is that you feel comfortable. You're like the governor of Oklahoma before he voted for himself for governor. You feel represented. You feel like the way the government's working right now is working for you. The other is that your hierarchy of needs precludes you from being able to vote because you're too busy working 2 or 3 jobs. And this is a lot of folks in my district. Too busy working those jobs to engage in the political process. Too busy trying to take care of your family and raise them and do that to participate. And that is my argument to people who are just sort of lackadaisical about this. If you aren't inspired to vote for your own interest, do it for somebody who can't. Be a voice for somebody else, because being an elected official isn't the only way to do that. You can do that through simple activism. So Washington County, like every county in Oklahoma, has a bunch of people who don't vote. Let's go find them and register them. And that, I mean, that's what you can do, because my thought is I love government. The reason that I'm in politics is that I think that government is a wonderful vehicle to deliver the services that people deserve. I'm a Democrat because my party, as long as I've been a part of it, is the one that wants to use those mechanisms to expand the services and to make them better for people. And that's why I am involved in politics and not just government, because I could be a bureaucrat for life, but I'm an elected official because I know that my party is the one. And I don't mean to disparage anything else. I love Tom as an independent, and we work with a lot of independents, and we work with Republicans too, but only when we're providing them the cover that they need to be for the right thing. So in the interim, it's about registering voters because and getting them to understand why. And I have an intern this year, and we were talking about doing some voter registration stuff. And he was like, what pisses me off about voter registration drives is they're just like, we don't care who you vote for. We just want you to vote. He said, that doesn't inspire me at all. When I walk by people at the mall or wherever, and they're trying to get people to register to vote, tell people the future of the country depends on whether or not you show up. And my God, look who's showing up right now. And are you as crazy as them? Do you think that they're voting on your behalf? No? Then show up. And I'm happy to come up and help you guys do that. Naomi has her hand raised, it looks like.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And again, thanks to Washington County to let me kind of pop in. I'm from the district level. One of the things we're really focusing on is how to frame our messaging to resonate with people who live in urban, suburban, and rural areas. As a Democrat who has lived in both Bartlesville and now in Oklahoma City, you have probably been exposed to all of those types of people. What are some of the things that you have found expands across all of those boundaries? Like the things that are really resonating with people. The thing I always like to give is we found that a lot of people in rural Oklahoma didn't know that Sooner Care and Medicaid were the same thing. So when we were getting people to sign the petition, we would talk to people about expanding Sooner Care instead of expanding Medicaid. Are there any other things like that that you can think of that we as leaders can really start reframing as we're trying to rebrand the party so that they know we are there to help the people?
That's a really good question. And ahead of the teacher walkout, one of the big things that Democrats have been talking about in the state legislature for a long time was pretty specific, and that was increasing the gross production tax to 5%. And we achieved that, and that was great. But we were a victim of our own success in that we had put so much of our energy into that specific demand that once we achieved it, we didn't really know where to go from there. And my view has always been that you need to think about what the larger issue, not a specific thing, because as soon as you achieve that specific thing, the Republicans, for example, will be like, well, you got that. So, and now you've moved the goalpost. Why are you still complaining? We need to be pretty clear and articulate about what we want. And the things that I think resonate the most with people, the things that you advocate for, are the economic issues. Because the Republicans have done an incredible job of making people feel like they can, if they just keep their head down and screw their neighbor over if they have to, that they're going to be part of the 1%. And the truth is, a lot of us won't be. But you can reach prosperity that we can all share if government is fairer and more equitable. And that's the kind of message that I think we need to figure out a way to disseminate to people. But it's the economic stuff on one hand that helps everybody. It doesn't matter what your social situation is. It does, actually. I mean, a policy that's bad for a white man is worse for a white woman, worse yet for a black man, and worst of all for a black woman. And we have the worst infant and maternal mortality rate in the state of Oklahoma, and that is worse for black women. We have high teen pregnancy rates, and of course, I mean, just you plug it in, it's all the same. We are top 10. We're a top 10 state in all the wrong categories. And I think that we keep talking about that. Why is our government celebrating how great we are when the stats show something else? And when it comes to the social stuff, I can always explain a no vote, because I can say, well, look, the bill was unconstitutional, because half the time it is. And another half the time it's unnecessary. So I think the message is two-pronged. One, we've tried it. We've tried the economic policies of the Republican Party for a long time in Oklahoma now, and where has that gotten us? And two, their economic policies have taken a backseat to their social policies, where they've spent a whole lot of time and a whole lot of your tax dollars promoting these stupid social conservative bills that look good on a mail piece and don't do a damn thing to improve your life. And I think we need to be pretty frank about that. And you don't have to talk about national politics if you don't want to. Just say, look, we're just common sense people who are kind of mad that our government's focusing on these political messaging bills when they could be doing things to help people. And that's why I said that COVID and the fact that so many people have been touched by that is an opportunity to sort of remind people, like, we're all in this together, because we all just went through something that was a year long that's still going on, that we should feel some unity and camaraderie about. And the Republican Party, to me, seems to be doing the best they can to try to tear us back apart, and that's sad to me. So, like, it's less about party, and I know this is a party meeting, but it's less about that and more about what makes sense. And why are we doing things that don't make sense? Because in a vacuum, if it's just you and some savvy politician who knows exactly what to say, they might make you be like, well, I guess you're saying the right thing. But the truth is, no, your gut is right. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to spend time on the things that we spend time on when there are so many people hurting, and you see it. So that's what I would say. Cortez, this will be the last one, but Cortez.
Yes, Cortez Johnson. I'm the affirmative action for CD1. I've heard you saying we need more voters, and I would like for us to encourage reaching out to the marginalized and unrepresented community to grow our base. I think it's an opportune time, because of what have all happened, that these individuals might be encouraged to, if we reach out to them, to register to vote. And I agree with you. Not only give them the register to vote, but give them a message also.
Yeah, give them a charge, right? I mean, it's
right.
There really is this sort of kindergarten kind of way of a lot of voter advocacy groups that just want to get people registered. And my wife and I talk about it sometimes. Like, there was this big elected teacher movement, and there were a bunch of teachers that ran for office. Well, a couple of them get into office and all they want to do is privatize education and give vouchers. And it's like, don't minimize this stuff to the level that you're not asking the critical questions that need to be asked of the people that you're helping. And then, you know, on the other hand, we lived through 4 years where we couldn't imagine any minority group or marginalized community voting for Donald Trump. So we just knew that the Democratic Party was going to be the foil of that. We were going to be the opposite of that. Well, now we're past that. And if we're going to, I mean, I hope to God that we are past the Trump era, but we, the Democratic Party, have to remind people, and we have to prove to them once again, because we need to continue to prove that we are the party of the diverse melting pot that is the United States. And we need to earn those votes. So Cortez, what you're saying is right. We've got to expand our electorate, but not just in a way that says, please come and vote for us, but in a way that says, join us because we are fighting for you. And then ensure that the folks that you elect are putting their money where their mouth is and actually filing those bills and fighting for those causes and doing those things, you know? Okay, I said the last one, but Rod will be the last one, and then I gotta go.
I think I've got a couple of short ones for us. I'm interested in voting rights and just the whole issue around voting. My question is, currently, are there any bills being presented to the legislature that in any way expand or protect voting rights in Oklahoma? And on the other side of that coin, are there some bills coming along that you think might have a serious chance of passing that do restrict voting rights more?
Yeah, there were some bills that would have helped voting rights, and they didn't make it very far. In fact, I don't think any of them got a committee hearing. There are two bills, one House bill and one Senate bill, and I will look up the bill numbers, but I just voted for that. I think it was 749 maybe, or 794 on the Senate side. And then there's a House bill that's similar, but these are bills focused on the state questions. The Republicans are real pissed off about state questions because as I mentioned earlier, we have affected more change through the initiative petition process in the last decade in the state of Oklahoma than the legislature has done in a few decades. And the only exemption there is the $500 million in new taxes that we raised a few years ago, and that was under threat of thousands of people marching on the Capitol, which they did anyway, and they should have. But there's those two bills, and here's what they do. They say that the state question, if you're in an initiative petition, one, you have to state what the economic impact would be. And most bills, like for example, Medicaid expansion, requires the state to put up $1 for every $9 federal dollar that we're getting. So to say that, you know, the state of Oklahoma has to chip in $100 million doesn't tell the full story, because we're getting $900 million from the feds every year. And so it's just a BS deal that's meant to put a wet blanket over that. And then the Senate version does that, but then also requires the folks that are pushing those initiative petitions to state how those bills would be paid for out of the state budget. My suspicion is that they're doing that in a way that would allow a prosecutor to be able to sue the initiative petition folks and say, the way that they said that they were going to fund this doesn't work, and therefore this isn't legitimate. And then a Secretary of State that would readily accept that argument would be like, you know what, you're right. So we're not going to let that be on the ballot. So those things are legitimate threats, and I will get those bill numbers. But I appreciate that question. That's good.
Thanks, Forrest.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Forrest, for joining us and sharing your time with us. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem. And when everybody's vaccinated and things are good again, let's all get together in person.
Yeah, we'd love to see you. Thanks.
Frowns on me.
The rest of you stick around for like 5 more minutes.
You guys, thank you.
Thanks again, Forrest.
Okay, I don't really have a lot to share. I just wanted to throw some reminders at you real quick. Our precinct and county convention is April the 3rd at 10 a.m. and it's going to be on Zoom, just like this. There's a registration link on our Facebook and on our website, and I have emailed one out. So if you got information for tonight's meeting, you probably have gotten information for that as well, because it's all on the same platforms. So we would love for you to join us if you're a registered Democrat for our precinct and county election, April 3rd. That's all I have. I think Eric maybe had some announcement for us.
So in April, tentatively on the 13th and the 15th at 6:30, and then on Sunday, the 18th at 2 p.m., Tulsa County and Wagner County have reached out to me about kind of co-hosting a SMART goals training workshop. And you can look up SMART. It's really simple to find online, but it's just about being really specific about what our goals are, steps on how to attain them, etc. So we're going to try to kind of reorient ourselves towards data-centered initiatives, and that will help us a lot. So keep those dates open if you're interested in that. April 13th, 15th, those are Tuesdays and Thursday evenings at 6:30, and then also Sunday, the 18th session at 2 p.m. And again, those are tentative. They may change. So just look for a registration link for that sometime after the convention. And just to kind of echo Rebecca, please register for the convention. Naomi, you got a question?
Might I make a brief announcement from CD1?
Yeah.
So we have on May 1st, we will have the district convention. So if you are elected at your precinct and county convention, if you are a delegate at those, you would be needing to attend on May 1st. That will be on Zoom. And we will get that information to Eric and Rebecca and all the other county leadership there. You guys can also reach out to me on that. The other thing is, in our efforts to really reach out into the other counties besides Tulsa, we are wanting to potentially host a booth, if they even have such a thing, at local rodeos within CD1 or on the edges of CD1 that might get attendance from people who live there. And the reasons for that are because they're actually pretty diverse events when you go to them, right? Like people might be from more rural areas, but there's actually a very diverse population that attends the rodeos. And so if anybody is interested in talking with us a little bit more about that, definitely let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. I typed our website in the chat if you need the website to get to our registration link. It's washcodemsok.com. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions before we leave, we happy to answer them. I don't see any. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. We will, if you don't attend the convention for any reason, we'll have another regular meeting next month, last Thursday of the month. And we hope to see you all soon. Bye.